A hobbyist is a person who spends way too much time, money, and enthusiasm on something absolutely no one asked them to be good at, like making necklaces, collecting spoons, or learning how to hold your breath. Often heard saying, it's just a hobby, while clearly exhausting your one brain cell to learn everything about it. This is an anvil I bought. And it's what happens whenever I fixate on an idea and I think, I definitely want to try that. I've been obsessed with the idea of blacksmithing. Taking a piece of metal and turning it into a tool, art, a knife. Take, for example, this. It's a railroad spike. It's old, rusty. You probably wouldn't use it for much if it's sitting around your shed. But imagine the same thing turned into this. It used to be a railroad spike. That's the potential of what blacksmithing can do. And since I don't know a whole lot about blacksmithing, I decided to reach out to an expert in the field.
My name is Ryan Tuck. Everybody calls me Tuck. We're here today because I have a blacksmith shop. I do ornamental ironwork. I do sculptures and furniture and some small architectural projects. My work is my hobbies and my interests. I have a whole ton of different interests that are important to me. And I've managed to parlay each of those interests into a way for me to have an income.
Hey Ron.
There you go.
How's it going, buddy?
Good to have you.
It's good to see you again.
Today, I'm making a garden gate. I'm gonna do a sculpture inside of it. Thinking about doing a tree of life motif. A lot of my popular sculptures have been flowers and whatnot. I've done other trees before and branch natural wood motifs. This will be the first tree sculpture. I like textures.
Okay.
I like using heavy materials in order to afford me the opportunity to put heavy textures into the materials. And natural forms tend to allow for that. The way that I got started with this, it actually began 25 years ago when I went to farrier school. The only reason I went to farrier school was because I was riding bulls in the rodeo when I was a teenager, and I had graduated from high school, and I was sick of all the jobs that were available where I lived at the time. They all needed you on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's the busiest times. And I really needed a job that would allow me weekends off or allow me to make my own hours so that I could go to all these rodeos I wanted to get to. I want the edges of this frame to have a nice texture, something that shows that it's been touched by my hand. In everything I do, I love to put as much texture into every project as I can. And on this frame piece, I want to texture up these edges. At the very end, I'll polish the high points on this texturing, and it'll show up really nice, kind of like a little stony type finish. And then for the next 12 or 15 years, I just carried that knowledge and that skill with me just as kind of a side thing that I could do. Mainly I was shoeing horses. And then I could, because I had a forge and an anvil and a hammer, I learned to do all these little tricks. And then eventually it just grew where I'd sold enough trinkets so I could get a welder. And now I'm building more interesting things that more people want to buy. Now I've got all the toys, and now I can make anything I want. The reason I drifted these holes or punched these holes rather than drilled these holes was because I want the tree to grow up through the top of the frame.
Okay.
And where the branches poke through the top of the frame, I want it to look like the tree actually poked through.
Poke through, okay.
Is the right word visceral, the visceral nature of, you can see that something traumatic happened there. Some of my friends, they get a big kick out of this collage of hobbies that I've collected, and they call me a Renaissance man, and I won't accept that because I'm not well traveled outside of the United States, and I'm not well educated outside of high school. and a little bit of community college. I don't do the Renaissance man thing, but I understand what they're talking about. When you start listing off all the things that I've gotten into and taken as far as I can take them. It's not just that I get into things, but I get into it and then I get as good as I can get at it, and then it becomes part of the fold. Just anything that I ever liked or thought was cool, or if I looked up to the people who did it, I would pursue it myself, and I would pursue it to whatever end I could pursue it to. I don't think that you can start from zero at the age of 20 in a trade, and by the age of 60 that you'd be a master. I do think masters are made, is that one person starts at 20 and works until they're 50, and they have a solid understanding of the trade. Here we go.
You make that look so easy.
I like to over twist this kind of stuff that's supposed to look like nature. I over twist it because it loses its uniformity when I do that. The twist starts to get gnarled and irregular.
Make it look natural, like nature.
Yeah. I don't want it to be a perfect candy cane.
Yeah. So you take a lot of your inspiration from nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about before, from philosophy, perfection can only happen perfection really only happens when two opposing things are together as one and synergistic, right? Perfection is not everything good all the time in paradise. Mm-hmm. Perfection is when everything good all the time in paradise meets directly in the middle with everything that is low and dark. That's where perfection happens. Perfection is not sitting on a beach for the rest of your life sipping ice cold drinks.
Right.
You would hate it after about 5 days.
Yeah.
Perfection comes when there's danger involved. Mm-hmm. Perfection comes when a challenge presents itself. Perfection comes when you're able to change who you were into something that you had the potential to be, but could not achieve that potential without the challenge. Mm-hmm. That's when perfection happens. So when we talk about this form and why I prefer it to be gnarled and over twisted rather than uniform, the perfection comes when so much force is applied that it's not allowed to be uniform anymore. It's not allowed to just be perfect and stand perfectly on its own in its symmetry. Only once nature comes in and adds a little bit of asymmetry and a little bit of wind and a little bit of rain and a hard winter or two, that's when the perfection comes. And that's when you get that gnarled look. So basically, there's my trunk, here's my roots, and there's my branches. If you're interested in forging or blacksmithing as a hobby or a trade, find a mentor or several mentors that you line up, and you work with one for 6 months or a year, and then you go and find a different one and work with them for 3 months or 6 months, and you find another one, work for a week here or a month there, and gain from the experience of others. And just as important, you get to use their tools. You know, that's one of the hardest things starting out, is you're not sure what to make or how to make it, but you are sure that you don't have enough tools. If you take in with somebody else, you may have to sweep their floors and you may have to eat a little bit of crow from time to time, but that's okay. That'll make you strong and make you better, and it'll improve your life dramatically just going through the experience of dealing with somebody who's not always pleasant towards you. And the things that you will learn and the access to tools, materials, and other resources that you will have will cause you to get very, very good very, very quickly in a way that could never happen isolated in a vacuum on your own with YouTube videos.
At the end of the day, I walked away with way more knowledge than just blacksmithing. Because Tuck has these different ideas and he has these different philosophies, and he's a natural born teacher. So he taught me more about what it means for him, which is bigger than him. And it makes me think, you know, I never would have met Tuck if it wasn't for the fact that I was interested in blacksmithing, and I reached out to him and he was nice enough to invite me to his shop. But the beautiful thing about it is, now that I have that interest in that hobby, I now have a teacher that I can go to teach me anything about blacksmithing. He has experience, and it's a connection that I made because I was interested in something. And the connections that we make in these different hobbies and interests in things, they're not just connections. It's not just about blacksmithing. It's about this friendship and this mentorship that helps expand your experience. It helps expand your ideas and your philosophies, and I think that that's very powerful.
Everything's connected. Every road you take, every path you walk, and every way that you improve yourself or add to yourself gives flavor to who you are and what you are and the sum of your life.